GPS devices, they've helped many people, including me, get their way around New York City without really knowing the area, and also places all over the world. But now devices like the iPhone have them built in, as well as other phones like the Palm Pre and many phones from Verizon. But the question on our minds is, who really needs a GPS device now, and who can just kind of skip one and go with some of that GPS software for cell phones? To answer this question, we bring a couple of technology journalists. First off, Chris Ziegler from EngadgetMobile. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Pleasure to be here.
Also, we bring in Jonathan Strickland from HowStuffWorks.com. Jonathan, thanks for being with us as well.
Thank you.
This all kind of comes from this TomTom announcement that they have a $100 piece of iPhone software, which will do turn-by-turn directions. They also have a little suction cup where you can put your iPhone, and there's an extra receiver built in so that the iPhone can get better reception when you're going through places with tall buildings like New York, among other features with the device. Now, Chris, we've seen cell phones with integrated GPS for a couple years now. Most of the time they've been novelty things to use like Google Maps or the like, but now we're seeing full turn-by-turn directions. How long till we see the end of the GPS device?
Well, I got to be honest, Randall, I'm not sure that it's a slam dunk. Sprint navigation has been really good, in particular, for a couple years now. I used it way back on the original Samsung Instinct and was really impressed by it. And there are a couple differences here between this integration between smartphone and navigation and the integration that happened a few years back between PDA and phone, which I think is the parallel that a lot of people are drawing.
Exactly.
And the difference here is that, by and large, a navigation device is something that you leave in your car, right? So, or when you park, you might take it out, put it in your glove box or whatever, just so it doesn't get stolen. But the point is that it's not something that you're carrying around with you. And I think that with phones, when you're integrating a GPS and a phone, you risk, first of all, you risk the possibility of getting a call while you're in the middle of navigating, right? Yeah. So those are two things that you want to be able to do at the same time, and if you integrate them into one device, that's a problem. So I just think, not to mention the fact that we still aren't at the point where GPS antennas in phones are necessarily quite as powerful or purpose-suited as those in dedicated navigation devices. And of course, there are solutions for that, right? There are Bluetooth receivers, TomTom's doing things. But the point is, I don't think that we'll ever get to the point where we completely eliminate those dedicated devices.
That's interesting. So, I just figured, since we always talk about things like cameras going away, being built into phones, and PDAs are gone now, essentially, except for, I guess, the iPod Touch is technically a PDA. But regardless, for the most part, they're gone. Chris, it's really interesting to hear you kind of think they're not going to go away. Jonathan, what's your take? Do you think the GPS's days are numbered, or do you take more of Mr. Ziegler's thoughtful approach?
It's funny because I thought I was going to be the only dissenting opinion, and then I hear Chris talk about it and realize that he says the same thing I'm going to say. I think that I don't think that they're going away that quickly. For one thing, we saw last year BlackBerry came out with their own mobile application from Garmin, and I don't remember people suddenly talking about how the GPS device was going to go away now that BlackBerry allows you to do that. I wonder if some of this has, or if a lot of this has as much to do with it being the iPhone
I think
as anything else.
That's definitely a fair comparison. Personally, when I look at this, a $99 iPhone app is basically not going to happen for me. I already have a GPS device, but more to the point, it's actually the same form factor as a GPS device that I would expect, being it's a touch screen, I can mount it on my windshield, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, Jonathan, that's why I would think this. Do you think any of those things would enter like a regular consumer's mind, or is a regular consumer more concerned about things like battery life or the talk time or these other things that Chris was mentioning?
I think a regular consumer, we have to also remember that as tech journalists, we are always looking at the cutting edge technology.
Yeah.
We're really quick to adopt it. So, every tech journalist I know owns at least one smartphone, if not more. But if I look at my wider circle of friends, there are very few who actually own a smartphone. I think that adoption it's increasing. The iPhone definitely helped it. But I think until we really see that ramp up to a significant level, we're going to see a lot more individual devices, and I think they're going to stick around a lot longer. The same thing could be said about MP3 players, dedicated MP3 players.
Yeah.
A lot of people talked about the Zune HD coming out. Is that really a smart idea without a phone component? But I think that people are still willing to have a dedicated device if it does what it's supposed to do really, really well.
It'll be interesting to see for sure with the Zune. Now, one more thing, Garmin sadly came out with, they're going to be releasing the Nuvi phone, which is a GPS-focused cell phone, which to me is a really poor idea for Garmin to do. Obviously, their strength is GPS devices. But that totally aside, who do you think is right to use just their cell phone as their GPS device? Is it something where you use it sort of as a navigational aid where you're finding your way around a new city, Chris? Or do you think it's more? Do you think it actually could replace it for some people in specific cases?
Absolutely. I think that there are plenty of people who could use it full-time, especially if you're only using navigation in your car infrequently. Personally, I use it as a backup. If I don't have either a car with a navigation system in it or a GPS unit in the car, I know that I always have a phone with me that's capable of doing it. So that's a peace of mind issue for me, just having that capability.
So it's just it's like a secondary backup. It's nice. But are you going to pay $99 for like turn-by-turn directions from TomTom?
Well, so that actually leads into another point I wanted to make, which is that if we go back to last year's holiday season, we remember that the big deal was the concept of the $99 dedicated GPS.
Yeah.
So and those are only going to get cheaper, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if we compare, say, I'm just going to throw out some numbers here, say a $69 or $79 dedicated GPS versus a $100 iPhone application.
Yeah, it's a slam dunk, definitely. I mean, I'm not going to pay $99 for an iPhone app when I know I could just spend $80 on another one that's never going to get in a cell phone dead spot, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I don't know, Jonathan, real quick, we're out of time. Final thoughts. Is there any secret to making people throw away their GPS, or is this still just going to be, two separate devices?
Well, I think it'll be two separate devices. I think no one's going to toss away their GPS, but I think a lot of people, like business travelers, would really be happy to adopt a smartphone GPS application, just because you're always on the move. You don't want to necessarily carry your GPS device with you, and you don't always have a rental car with one. So
you want to skip the rental car.
Then.
You want to skip those rental car GPSs. They're kind of pretty crappy. Anyway, guys, we're going to have to leave it there. Chris Ziegler from EngadgetMobile, thanks for being with us. Also, Jonathan Strickland from HowStuffWorks.com. Thanks for being with us. I'm Randall Bennett, and don't forget, you can always get us on iTunes. We're on YouTube. I don't know if we can strike a deal with TomTom or Garmin, but we'll see what we can do to kind of make something happen. I don't know. Anyway, maybe Chris, you have some ins. I don't know. We'll see what can happen. Anyway, see you later.
Absolutely.